Hi, I'm Christine. You may know me from the Daredevil website, theothermurdochpapers.com, which sadly I haven't had much time to update over the last few years. But you may also know me from this book that I wrote in 2022 and actually did manage to finish, so yay me. Anyway, I've decided to record a reaction video to the Daredevil trailer that came out a couple of weeks ago, and also to the first of the teasers that came a few days ago. I should say I'll just make some stops along the way and offer some comments, and then I will summarize my thoughts at the end. With that said, let's get to it.
Thank you for finding the time.
I will admit, it's not entirely unpleasant seeing you again.
So first of all, let's go back a few seconds here. I love that they have chosen this diner as the location for this conversation. This is where Matt and Elektra had breakfast together in season 2. And I guess this is a perfect place to have sort of tense adversarial conversations with your enemies turned frenemies turned, well, in the case of Elektra, more than frenemies, but probably not in the case of Fisk. We'll see.
A lot of time has passed. By the look of it, you've come up in the world.
I could say the same about you.
A mayor serves his city.
So of course we're going to have to go back and look at Times Square here, where we have a, this is New Year's Eve, this is Mayor-elect Wilson Fisk, not yet mayor. We have a Rogers the Musical ad, we have an ad for the Pim Van Dyne Foundation, and we have an ad for Harlem's Paradise that reads, and I wrote this down, Harlem's Paradise is a place where hip-hop, funk, jazz, and rock and roll all come back to the mothership. It's a party, y'all. I've seen stronger copy, I will tell you that. Funny, but kind of weird, to be honest.
I can see you're not entirely convinced.
Can you blame me? I can't shake the feeling that you're gaming the system.
Why did you stop being a vigilante?
The line was crossed.
Yeah, this is just a gorgeous shot. This is clearly, I think, something that happened in the past. Matt references a line was crossed, not necessarily the line, or we don't know who crossed the line and what kind of line. But beautiful shot of a helmet. Of course, the missing horn has the indentation, has the outline of a D, which is, of course, very, very cool.
It's hard to come to terms with a violent nature.
This, I believe, is Hector Ayala as the White Tiger, played by the sadly late Camar de los Reyes.
Hating the power it has over us.
And of course, we have Wilson Bethel back as Bullseye. He obviously survived the very comic book-like surgery he had to repair his spine, which of course did not address the spinal cord, but just sort of the actual physical structure of the spine.
The city that can't go unchecked.
Sometimes peace needs to be broken.
And here's Matt having sex with a character that has pretty much been confirmed to be Heather Glenn, played by Margarita Levieva. And I'm kind of interested to see where they go with this and what they do with her, because she's an interesting character. She's also kind of a complicated one with a complicated history that I might get back to at the end.
The chaos must reign.
And we have Frank Castle. I can just tell everybody was cheering at this point. Great to see Jon Bernthal back.
Mind putting the hatchet down? I was raised to believe in grace. But I was also raised to believe in retribution.
So this is a very comic book-like montage of different helmets that I have complicated feelings about. Well, I mean, they're not that complicated. It's a show, but I mean, they're very. It's the kind of thing I would love in Iron Man. I'm not so sure about in a show like Daredevil, where it's obviously a comic book show, but certain helmets don't play as well. But we'll see. We'll see. They might convince me. So, after the trailer, which of course I was sitting on for 2 weeks before recording this, it may have even been more than 2 weeks, there was a teaser trailer that came out just a few days ago. And then actually just before I was going to sit down to do this, there was another teaser trailer. But in both of these cases, you can kind of tell that they're not adding that much more footage to these teasers at this point. It's more like they're expanding on scenes that we've seen in the trailer, adding some more context actually in one situation that I will mention when we look at it. But I do appreciate that they're not putting it all out there in the teasers or even the trailer, because you can just tell there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of violence. There's a lot of everything. But it's not so much that you as a viewer will begin to figure out the plot or anything like that. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that they're not like they're giving us enough to just like get in the mood to watch more Daredevil, but not too much. So that's great. But let's look at the teaser.
I was raised to believe in grace, that we can be transformed into a better person. But I was also raised to believe in retribution.
Yeah, so this was one thing I wanted to talk about, because this actually does add some context to some of the things we saw in the trailer. When I just saw the trailer, I wasn't sure who this person in the red ski mask was going to be. I was kind of hoping it would be Matt, because my God, that's just so violent. But clearly, ouch.
Just one of those days, I guess.
Daredevil, Born Again, only on Disney Plus.
Yeah, and then of course we have this scene where Matt does not seem okay at all. This is another new scene that was added that wasn't in the trailer. So just to sum up some of my just general thoughts, having seen the trailer and the other footage and everything and what we know going into the show, first of all, I'm just so grateful to be getting the show back, essentially. Yeah, I mean, it's not the original show that came out on Netflix all those years ago, but it is very much the same vibe, all the same characters, definitely an obvious continuation existing in the same kind of universe sort of thing, which is more than I ever could have imagined. I've been a member of the Save Daredevil team as well, going back to the very beginning of that campaign. So shout out to my Save Daredevil peeps. And this is just, it's a dream come true. On the other hand, I always tend to just sort of guard my heart a bit when it comes to Daredevil. I am, if you haven't, been able to tell from the fact that I wrote a book about this character, I'm very sort of attached to Matt Murdock and his world, and so I'm always gonna worry, will they do him right? And I mean, I've had the same kinds of concerns before the original show came out, and even, from one season to the next. So there's always going to be an element of that for me. Like, this character means so much. I can't even explain why. He's just awesome, and so you want to see him done right. But from what we've seen so far, I trust that these creators know what they're doing. And having also had, Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio sort of involved in some of the decisions that were made, it seems, anyway, after the writer's strike and everything, when they kind of went back to the drawing board a bit and looked into, what to keep from what this show originally was going to be and what to sort of bring back. And from what we've heard, a lot of what they brought back has been stuff that we all wanted. So I'm very excited about that. But again, always kind of worried, always nervous, as you know, that's how it should be for me. And to get back to some of the things I wanted to comment on, I mentioned that the inclusion of Heather Glenn is kind of interesting to me. I like that they brought back a character that was introduced sort of pre-Frank Miller, and who actually survived Frank Miller and then was finally sort of, I don't know what YouTube allows you to say, but let's just say it was a self-inflicted exit from the world of the comic book. But she's a character who was a supporting character for a really long time. And she's also this weird, ditzy kind of senses no impropriety, has no sense of decorum kind of character who pretty much was introduced when she crashed into Matt's life. The way she is introduced in the comics is actually pretty funny. She has a spare key to Matt's apartment that he just moved into because that key was one she had from her ex-boyfriend. He used to live in that apartment. I don't know why Matt didn't get that when he moved in, or was advised that somebody else had a key to the apartment. But she pretty much just like crashes into his apartment, decides she likes him, and then just doesn't leave. But she's also this character that's attracted quite a bit of chaos over the years. There's a big plot or subplot around her father, Maxwell Glenn, who turns out to have been manipulated by the Purple Man, and it's a whole thing, and a source of a lot of tension between Matt and Heather in the comics. I have no idea if they're going to bring in a Maxwell Glenn kind of character for this show. They might. What she does bring to the comics and brings to Matt's life is this just sense of fun and devil may care. So that's going to be interesting to see if they do anything that's, you know, a close rendition of what her comic book character was, or if they're just sort of using the name of Heather Glenn and then projecting whatever other type of girlfriend material they want onto her. They could do that. We don't know. But that's going to be interesting to see. We can also just tell that there's a lot of violence in this show. And as I mentioned when we looked at the teaser there at the end, I was kind of, you know, worried about seeing Matt inflict that much deliberate violence on someone. And of course, at this point, we're going like, Christine, did you not watch the original show? Which I did. And it's even something that I know Charlie Cox has joked about, that, you know, like maybe he hasn't killed anyone, but he has put a lot of people into comas. And he has probably left a lot of people with like lifelong disabilities after having an encounter with him. But what's kind of gruesome about that one scene where he gets up on this like structure, the scaffolding, just to like put all of his weight onto this other person's knee. It just seems excessive, you know? So, and we'll see what this does to Matt's head during the show. I also do hope that we'll see some aspects of his legal career. I think maybe some of that might focus on Hector Ayala's White Tiger character. That could be interesting. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Of course, I should mention Muse, of course, who is one of the big bads, obviously, in this show, and he looks terrifying. He looks absolutely psychotic, and it's good for Matt that he can't see him because he is one scary-looking dude. And as for another thing I've thought to ask myself, will anyone associated with the show have read my book? And I honestly think and hope that someone would have, because it would be helpful, I think. But if they have, all I can say is this.
Trust that I will know.
But anyway, if you haven't read my book, shameless plug, I'll put the details in the show notes. And feel free to comment. I will turn off comments on YouTube, but I will be directing you to my website where I will have a post associated with this particular video. So this should be fun. Bye.